Well, kia ora koutou. Thank you for joining me and us for the 12th online planning group for Try This. I'm about to share my screen. Let me know when you can see this. You might have to do it audibly because I can't see you anymore. Can you see? Okay, and it's also telling me my internet's a bit bumpy, so we'll have to see how we go. So this month, we're looking at the key, which is called Enact a film clip. I'll start the slideshow so we can have a look at my slides here. More people arriving as we speak. So Enact a film clip. If you were with us last month, we looked at one called Watch a Film Clip. So Enact a film clip has its similarities as a sequence to that, but with one obvious difference. The students are going to be in the action this time, whereas last time they were watching either a teacher or one of those mythical beasts called another adult in the classroom. So that brings some quite different qualities to the film clip and the way that it can be used. So this month, I thought I'd open with this whakatauki, whaia te mātauranga hei oranga mō koutou, which means seek after learning for the sake of your well-being. The reason I chose this one was that when we get to the content of this one, I think the reason for exploring the content using this key is to do with well-being. And as teachers who use drama, we're often called upon to do that, aren't we? Teachers often come to us and say, oh, can you do something on, insert word here, abstract concept like bullying or jealousy. We did a beautiful drama on jealousy at the drama conference. And the example I've written in the book is an attempt to explore one of those kind of abstract concepts, and that brings some of its own problems, as we'll discuss. So a little bit about, we've had our reflections and stories before we started recording. So as always, what we do in these sessions is we walk through the example, usually the example from the book, and then we discuss it a bit, and then we might talk about tips for planning. And we reckon to go for an hour, but what we've decided to do is we'll keep going if we go over time, because we are recording it for future. But if you have to go on the hour, everybody understands. Okay, that's the deal. So has somebody else joined us in the meantime? Oh, kia ora, Shona. Lovely to see you. There are a whole bunch of new people here for you to share with tonight. So Shona, where are you? Where in the country are you? Unmute and tell us. Where are you based, Shona?
Oh, it's Shona. I'm based in Auckland at the moment. I'm visiting family, so that's why I'm a little bit late.
Well, thank you for joining us in the holidays. It's much appreciated. All right. So here we go with this key then. So the example that's written in the book, talk about working with something you don't know much about. As anyone who knows me knows, I don't use social media at all. So I have no knowledge of TikTok. However, I decided I wanted to work with an example that was really different from Tim's example. Because in the book, when you get it, Joe, you'll see, or if you already got it, you'll see there's always an example from Tim and an example from me. And Tim had written a really good, solid example for this Enact film clip that was based around a documentary involving, I think, Henry VIII, isn't it? Tim, you're one?
Yeah.
And so I went, okay, how can I write something as different as possible from that? So what is a very different form of film from a documentary? And that's how I ended up on a TikTok clip. And I also ended up on a TikTok clip because the topic I thought it would be interesting to explore is the topic of critical literacy. And we'll explore kind of what I mean by that in a minute. But yeah, so it landed me in that situation we often find ourselves in, teachers, where I'm writing an example about something I don't necessarily know that much about myself. But I think that brings up some really nice practice questions around how do we use the keys with abstract concepts like critical literacy. That's not a time or a place or a, it's an abstract concept. Can you give me other examples of those kinds of abstract concepts you end up being asked to explore? I mentioned before bullying. Can you think of another kind of concept like that you end up being asked to explore?
I was asked
Bravery.
to explore. Oh, sorry.
Go on,
Sorry,
bravery.
Kate.
Yeah,
Go on,
Kate.
go, Kate.
No, you go, Tim, and I'll come and I'll slide in afterwards.
I was just going to say bravery or courage or resilience or any of those kinds of things that are about developing positive attitudes or dispositions.
And what were you going to say, Kate?
I was given a really tricky one. I'm not sure if this quite fits your example. The difference, touching, inappropriate and appropriate touching. I was given that as a drama topic. Yeah, I don't know if that quite
example
fits.
of it. That isn't in a time and place. It's a concept, right?
Yeah.
Others?
Consent would be another one.
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it? Yeah, nice. So bullying, what else did I write down? Cyber safety, consent, identity, these kinds of concepts. We explore those a lot. So I'm hoping you'll jump in and help me here, Tim. But I think the secret is that this key is not just about making a film about those things, making a film clip about those things. What makes this a dramatic inquiry exercise rather than a drama exercise is that we build a context around that. So I'm doing quite a lot of talk before I get going with the example, but I think this is useful on this occasion. So in this case, it's not just let's make a TikTok about critical literacy. It's let's imagine a context in which a team of people have made this award-winning TikTok that has really transformed people's behavior. So you sort of set up a whole context that's got location and characters, and suddenly we've got something we can do an inquiry, a dramatic inquiry or a key about. And if you think about these award-winning marketers who've made this earth-shattering TikTok on critical literacy, suddenly you can ask the students to imagine themselves as that. So and what I was going to say was that makes sense of the choice of a TikTok as the type of film. So your choice of what kind of film you're going to use is really going to depend on what your context is and the characters and location that you build into your context. I don't know if that's making much sense, but if we take a moment to think outside of my example for a minute, if you say you're going to do say you're going to explore something about bullying, what kind of film might you work with there? You've already heard of a drama documentary example for Tim's one. That seemed right for studying history, didn't it? With mine, it was critical literacy, online safety, interpreting text. So a TikTok is kind of right at the heart of that. What kind of film might it be for a bullying example? What's the context in which there's no right or wrong here, but what feels like it might fit?
Like a PSA.
Tell me what a PSA means.
Public service announcement.
Ah, right.
It could be like
could be that. Go on.
A short commercial.
Yeah. And who's made it? Who's made it? This commercial.
Oh, good question. A commercial would be made by maybe Ministry of Education.
There you go. So now you've got a dramatic inquiry context, because we've kind of got a purpose. We are some people in the story, and we're making this for a purpose. Yeah. I was thinking as a totally different example. I love yours. I think it's right. I think when you teach this, that's what you should do. I was thinking sometimes the kind of film that gets involved with a bullying incident might be some CCTV that recorded a bullying example, in which case, who might we be if we're looking at this CCTV?
security guards, police
We
officers.
might. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So can you see how this, I'm putting all this up front because this is how the kinds of decisions you make about what kind of film clip you're going to make. And it sort of explains why I thought TikTok was the way to go, even though it's probably not something I'm familiar with or that, you know, knowledgeable about. It just seemed to
because
go
I was
with
wondering if
little-
it would be like a series of like little short clips. You know how you have those things and everyone watches it and then they're wanting to watch the next one. Wasn't there one about
Yeah.
Cadbury's ad like years ago where people watch this couple fall in love through the different ads?
Yeah.
So you could see
So
if
there's loads of story potential there, isn't there,
Yeah.
Joe? I think there's one running on free-to-air TV in New Zealand at the moment about a boy finding his identity, and he goes back to Scotland, and he's got Panama, and he's clearly kind of got mixed culture, and we're supposed to all be hooked and want to know what's happening next. So I don't know if that's working for you, but I'm dimly aware of it, if that counts. So yeah, when you start thinking about not just film, but what film this is and why it's been made and who's making it and who are we? Are we the ones making it? Are we the ones watching it? You know, who are we as in the students? Who are you going to frame the students at? That gives you much more of a sense of how this key works. Atom, have I got the flavour of that? Is there anything you'd
so
like to add to that?
the extra dimensions that you're giving it there are moving it out of a drama kind of strategy where without a context. So I don't know what the equivalent would be on Jonathan Nealon's list, for example. But the and drama teachers, of course, often give those things context as well. But what you're doing is kind of foregrounding the thinking of the context of the film rather than doing it as an exercise. So it's got an audience. There's a reason why the audience are looking at it. It was the film made, you know, was it, as you say, if it's a CCTV, then it wasn't deliberately made. It was capturing a moment of something that was happening, which is later looked at and analysed. Whereas you know, something like a documentary or a TikTok film is made. You know, people sit down and think about why they want to make it and what they want to portray in film. So all those things add dimensions to the actual clip itself.
Yeah, and they also all carry their own conventions, don't they? So I spent some time today refreshing my memory on what the sort of conventions are that people use on TikToks, and there are several of them, and so those kind of come into the drama that you're going to invite the students to do. Because to make something absolutely clear, we do not get our phones out and record a TikTok here. We imagine the TikTok using our bodies, using drama. So it's like an opportunity to bring those conventions in. And the one time I did teach this I did it with teachers as part of a literacy. It was a session on critical literacy. We found those parameters quite useful. But my challenge was, because TikTok is a space where people are often kind of really in showing off mode, and it's kind of so lighthearted, it's almost ridiculous. The trick was to keep the focus and sort of seriousness of the making. And I think that I was able to do that because this was the kind of, let me just give you the context as I gave it to the teachers. I said something like this: imagine that some group of people, some incredibly skilled marketers, they might even be people who work for TikTok themselves, because I understand that some of the most watched things on TikTok are actually made by TikTok, urging people not to become too addicted to TikTok, ironically. So imagine that these incredibly skilled marketers and users of this medium have made a series of these very short clips, these very short TikToks, conveying messages about the trustworthiness of what people view online. And they've done this so cleverly that the videos shift people's concept. First of all, they take the internet by storm. They're viral, everybody's watching them, everyone's talking about them. But more importantly, they actually shift young people's behavior. People are making response videos, they're making more informed decisions. Money is protected. People stop being the victim of scams. identity theft decreases, and in fact, lives are saved by these videos, such as the quality and impact of them. Imagine the video, that the little short clip that is so effective and so short that it has this kind of profound effect. I wonder what those might look like. So can you see how I kind of honed in on the appeal for seriousness there, and how giving the frame, rather than just, hey, let's make some TikToks about critical literacy, it was able to take us, yeah, I hope you can see that. It takes you towards taking this seriously, right? Because we've created a world in which this mattered and this did something profound. So I'm not going to say it worked 100%. The teachers still had a big romp because it's TikTok, okay? But but that came into it. So anything you wanted to ask about that context before we have a go at it? Go, Michelle.
Raise
Hi,
my
everyone.
hand.
This is Michelle, and Michelle is visiting from Toronto.
Hi, everybody. I was just thinking like a great response video would be if your theme was if it was bullying, but specifically about body image, because there's so much body shaming online. So inviting, and like especially on social media. So if the students are invited to do response videos to, you know, the horrible comments that show up on certain people's posts, it might resonate.
I think you're beginning to see why I chose TikToks, because I wanted to take us into the very world that does the thing that is dangerous. Now, I've confused matters by bringing up a whole lot of other topics that we might teach, like bullying, like identity, like everything else. But the example that we're going to look at today is around critical literacy. So maybe I'll just spend a second telling you what we mean by that, and then we might imagine these videos that were made. So you can park and put aside for now the other topics, the bullying, those ones. Just park those, because I was talking to you as teachers about the kinds of things we might do. But our example here is going to be on critical literacy. What I quite like this definition of critical literacy that comes from 2012, which is a long time ago in this world, but from TKI. So it's I'm probably telling you all teachers things you already know, right? So critical literacy was something we all did PLD on a few years ago, wasn't it? But around critiquing text, around trying to figure out how the knowledge that we get fed is constructed, and how legitimate it is. Is this familiar to you all as an idea? So so questions like, does the person who wrote this text or produced this text have the authority to write this text? If they're speaking for a group or a position, is it their story to tell? That's a really important thing to bring to a text, isn't it? If you're downloading a Purako to use in the classroom, it really matters whether that one has Mana Whenua approval or whether it's just something that someone's made up, right? Is it a tweet or with a whole lot of information, or is it a peer-reviewed article? Those are different things, yeah? And how do we teach kids to know how to do that? Yeah. And then the third one here is about power relationships. So does a text exclude particular readers or perspectives? So those of you who've worked with me a lot, you know that I love to ask the question at the end of a drama, you know, whose stories did we not hear today? Or is there another perspective we could have taken? These are all critical literacy questions. Is this all familiar territory to you? Because I guess I'm trying to build a little bit of familiarity, or remind us, because in a minute we're going to have a go at maybe making the earth-shattering TikTok that brought all this to people's attention. So as I'm touching on what critical literacy is, maybe you could be jotting down a thing that jumps out at you, because maybe that'll be the thing that you put in your TikTok video. So, and the fourth point here is the ways in which texts can position a reader. So, you know, you can read a text and you're positioned by that text. It's quite a complicated idea, isn't it? But you know, even a fairy tale will position us as either a sort of an omnipotent force that's watching over everybody, or as someone to be scared of this situation, or, you know, how texts position us. Now, 20 2012 was a fairly long time ago. So the kinds of texts that we're talking about having to be critical about have changed over time, right? They used to talk a lot about written text, but now we've got more texts than that, right? So I'm just gonna here's a tool that many of you may have come across or taught to children. Have you heard about the CRAP guidelines? The CRAAP, you know, so it's like a crap detector test. Like it appeals to kids. You've seen it before, Kate? So this is cool. Maybe the award-winning TikTok kind of rode on this idea. I don't know. We'll find out in a minute. So you're looking at the currency for the C, like how current is this? The relevance, is it related to what I'm supposed to be working on? The authority of the person who wrote it, the accuracy and the purpose. It's nice, isn't it? Crap as a shorthand to, sorry about if that's not a word you like to hear, but I'm going to say it again, crap. Of course, it's hard for kids to know how to work those things out, but it's really important for them to know that those are even questions they need to ask. Yeah. So we've got currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. Why was this written? Who wrote it? Does it relate to what I'm doing? Is it accurate? Is it written by an authority? I was going to play you a little clip of this guy, but I might skip this. This is an Australian expert on critical literacy, and he's talking about the fact that yes, it's written text. Yes, but it's also visual information. And increasingly in the 2020s, it's imagery, and it's even things like this video itself. How do you know that this is not an AI generated video that I was going to play you? So critical literacy it extends into images too. You are looking here at my first ever AI generated image that I've ever made. I made this for this presentation. It's you can see why I made it about critical literacy. I think it's a pretty good image for critical literacy, except if I tell you that my prompt was a young Māori boy looking at a computer screen seen from behind with a question mark on the screen. So it's not trustworthy in that sense, is it? Because this to me does not read like a young Māori boy. But it's spooky, isn't it? Because if I didn't tell you, if I'd said that was a photo of one of my kids in my class, you might have believed me. So how do we know? How do we critique the images that we're seeing? And particularly if we're using images for history. So you're going to like this one, Tim. What happens if you use Adobe Image Generator and you ask it to do a pen sketch of the Great Fire of London? These are the 4 options I was given. Do you like them? How would you do the crap test on this, Tim? How do you know that you can't trust these images?
Well, Big Ben wasn't built till 1870 or something. I mean, there's a problem there straight away.
Yeah.
Most of the buildings, well, no, all the buildings in all the images are 17th or no, 18th century rather than 17th century. There's a bus in one of them.
Yeah, because London.
I think they're pretty useless as kind of.
They're really useless, but they're kind of fascinating, aren't they? And look how they've kind of superimposed Great Fire of London era clothing on like modern department stores. It's just so great how it doesn't know. And in one example, at least one example, the Great Fire of London is coming out of a fireplace. It's a great fire like in the center of the street. So so I hope by throwing this in front of you, I've demonstrated how we need to have critical literacy about texts, including images. And so the question is, what might so let's imagine a world in which children are absorbing these deep fakes, these texts that they're reading online, they're reading in books, they're reading on bits of paper, they're passing to each other on Facebook that they've been written by. They're reading all these texts and viewing all these images, and there's something that is created on TikTok that wakes them up to what they need to know to be able to assess these texts critically. I wonder what that amazing set of TikToks might have looked like, might have gone like. What I'm gonna do now is just take the pressure off the recording. I'm gonna press pause on the recording. Okay, just give me a sec, because I wouldn't be able to perform in front of a whole lot of other people on there. Hang on, where are we? Stop share. I'm going to pause the recording. So we just heard back from Joe and Shona, whose idea was around having a oh, can you just explain it again for us, Joe? It was so good.
Okay, sure. So the idea was that when you clicked on TikTok, your computer took your image and imposed it on the TikTok image, so that it was now you that was the person. And then Shona came up with the idea of having the words, "Do you trust this person?" And of course it's you, and then the whole other people might have some red arrows that point to that person. You see that, and then maybe some other people in the group would make the frame, so you could sort of pop the head in and work out how to do that. And then then maybe some other people might say, like almost like voices in the head, oh, of course I trust myself, or I would never do something like that. And so that was the kind of idea of
it's really quite surreal, and it relies on some technology that we hope has been invented, of the face that's there being
I bet it is.
Yeah, no wonder that was the one that got people thinking. That would get me thinking, that video. That TikTok. And we also talked about, while the recording was paused, we also talked about how for this key, really it's the quality of the discussion that's had in the groups about, well, what's the essence here, what are we trying to show, and so for Shona and Joe, this is what you were inquiring into, was the trust, the nature of seeing yourself dragged into this. And it's really that discussion for how to make the imagery that is the meaning making and the inquiry, just as much as the quality of the drama that might result. So you'll find as a drama teacher, if that's your specialism, and a couple of people here are drama teachers, you'll find that in a DI classroom, a dramatic inquiry classroom, there's often a lot more talk and discussion and inquiry than there might be in a drama classroom, where the focus is on the curriculum area of drama, just because we're also in that inquiry mode, and drama is helping us with that. So let's hear from the other group. Where did your conversation go?
Kate's our spokesperson.
Well, I think it would be useful if maybe Jen or Michelle could talk to the Miley Cyrus idea, and then I'm happy to talk about my costume idea.
You really went there.
Jen, okay, so Jen shared that recently Miley Cyrus, her Flowers song that just won a Grammy and is very famous, another singer, Jason Mraz, brought her to court because he claims that the song actually is his tune, at least. And he's claiming, I guess, intellectual property or copyright. And did she win?
Oh,
we don't know. It's still in trial. We don't know. But we started talking about when somebody maybe takes somebody else's idea and sells it as their own, and
that challenges authority,
and everybody loves their her song. And then Kate had the brilliant idea for our which was Kate.
We were also very targeted on year 8, year 9. So we were actually, they know that this is false. They know that Miley Cyrus, or, they know about her. So I think that was the important factor too.
So you'd have someone dressed as Miley Cyrus, and maybe you could use the pop idea. So you pop into the just the eyes. And then when you pop out, she's taken off like a hat, and underneath there's like a Jason Mraz hat. And then you zoom in again, and when you pop out again, she's taken off the Miley Cyrus top and she's wearing a Jason Mraz top. So slowly, after a few pops, you can see that she was actually, the singer is Jason Mraz, not Miley Cyrus. Kind of bizarre, but kind of like, just like it's morphing. So slowly the singer is morphing from Miley Cyrus to Jason Mraz.
Yeah, and I think, Shona, I think you had the idea about potentially having both songs playing, which would be, I've seen that on TikTok too.
Like rubbing up together.
Yeah, it's like, here's the section from Jason Mraz's version, and here's Miley Cyrus's take, or like what she claims is hers, and playing, like maybe it flips back, and we didn't even talk about this. This is just right now, but maybe it flips back and forth. Like when it's showing Miley, it's playing her song, and then it flips to Jason, his portion, and you can see the similarities there. I don't know.
I can see you having so much fun with this, and bringing your own knowledge of popular culture into it. And I imagine this is just what children would do as well. And so then, of course, the extra challenge is to remind students that, you know, remembering that in our imagined world, this is a video that has won people over to the idea of being critical online. So what is it that's layered in there, or said over the top, or what, you know? And so it's continually refining and returning and it to that focus. Can you see how that might happen in the classroom? I'm blown away with how well you ran with that while in a breakout room, and didn't they do well, Tim?
Fantastic.
They did much better than us. We had a go. Do you want to hear about ours?
No.
Yes.
I've got to go, but thanks so much.
You've got to go. Oh, bye, Robin.
Bye, Robin. Yeah, I've got to go as well now.
Yeah. Do you want to tell them?
No, we don't need to talk about ours, Viv. Those were much better.
They were so much better. All right. No, I'm never going to force a student to share who doesn't want to share. That's fine, Tim. But our slogan was, "Don't believe everything you see online." We were going to have someone in disbelief about what they'd seen. Cool. So there you go. There's this in essence, that is this key, with the exception that in a classroom, you'll see all laid out in the example in the book. The students are obviously up on their feet in these groups, and they're actually enacting these film clips. Unlike last month, where they're watching and they're scrutinizing the teacher in role doing it. But it's also an opportunity to really scrutinize the film. I mean, you'll be very familiar with this, Joe, because you'll do a lot of watching, you know, having students in role and others watching them. So they're also watching for, what do you think? Why do you think they chose that? And what do you think that those words, why do you think those words are right for this job? And always with that sense of the wider frame of, you know, remembering this was the video that changed the world. So what was it about this video? And that, I think, is a continual reminder to refine, isn't it? You're not going to get away with something a bit loose and shabby, because that wouldn't have been the video. That can't be it yet, because this was a video that really changed people's behavior. So you'll see in the instructions in the key in the book, it says, you know, invite the students to have to use, these are familiar to drama teachers, to use a frozen start, and then when we swipe or something like that, that's the start of the TikTok, and then we have a clear ending. It's always useful in the classroom, Shona, to have, if students are sharing back an idea, to start frozen and finish frozen, because it just kind of controls it. Everybody watching one clip at a time, and the reason everybody's watching one clip at a time is that this is inquiry. So we really want to spend some time, you know, inquiring into what we're looking at. And unusually for a dramatic inquiry lesson, we're saying things like, you know, what did you see that body language where? What do you suppose the creators of this video were going for when they did that? And in the dramatic inquiry classroom, we don't tend to stop and talk to the people in the video because that's incoherent. But we can very much talk about it. If it's framed as a TikTok, it means we can view it and we can review it. And the conventions of viewing should, as much as we can, fit the conventions of the film as it is used in real life. Does that make sense? So if it's a TikTok, you watch a TikTok beginning to end, and then you can rewatch it, can't you? And rewatch it and rewatch it. If it's a documentary on TV, we can stop, we can rewind, we can. So we tend to use the conventions of viewing that match the conventions of the way that the film is used in real life. That's just a coherence thing. It's just a classy way of working. Atem, we try and do that. And yeah, I think given that it's TikTok, it would be saying, you know, what are some other hashtags they might use to spread this around? And that's going to take us back to our learning, isn't it? Trust, truth, question mark. What messages would young people take away from this video? And then we can do critical literacy on the videos itself. What kind of tropes did we fall into when we were making these today? What kind of shortcuts do TikTok videos take? And I can tell you, having watched a YouTube clip called the 50 most viewed TikTok videos today, there's a lot of body shaming. There's a lot of assuming that, you know, young, cute and sexy is the way we all want to look. So it's really important that we do critical literacy on our critical literacy pieces in this case. So yeah, that's kind of how this key could work in this example. But what I want to stress, and I really invite you on board on this too, Tim, is depending on the kind of film you use, you're going to get a very different kind of experience in the classroom, and that's kind of the point. It's used a very different way in your practice, eh, Tim?
Yeah, so there are lots of ways that I use this key. Sometimes I'll use it in an elaborate way, like the way that we have. I was going to say this morning, but it's your evening, isn't it? This evening, it's 7 o'clock in the morning here, so it's odd to talk about it in the evening. But this evening we've talked about it in a quite elaborate way because we've thought about what would the difference would be if we were using technology and we're studying or looking at representing something quite sophisticated, an abstract idea. But there's lots and lots of different ways of using this key. So one way I was just thinking about that I've used this week actually, or earlier in the week, I was working in a school and with some small children. They were 5 and 6, and by coincidence we were looking at the Great Fire of London. And
and you've got some photos to help you with that.
yeah, we wouldn't have used those photographs. Well, they're not photographs, are they? They're AI generated images. So anyway, so there was a moment in the story that we were creating together where the children were representing firefighters. So they were out in London trying to put out the fire, and the king was getting very stressed about it because the fire was spreading, and the children were sort of talking about, you know, pulling down the houses and putting out the fires and things. Anyway, in one of the houses that they were firefighting was a baby. They could hear the sound of a baby, and the question was, would we, would all of us, or would any of us risk their lives in this situation? And of course, being brave firefighters, they all said, yes, we would. So the question then became, well, what would you do to rescue the baby? And we were talking about breaking the door down and then going down, crawling down really low under the smoke and going up the stairs. And so what I did was I framed it as a piece of film. Now, it's not entirely coherent.
I was going to say, because they didn't have film then.
Right. So the question, so that the way that you frame it is, you say, imagine if it was. Imagine if this was being filmed as if it was a film. So you're imposing a frame on it as if it is an imaginary frame. So it's not a real frame. And the advantage with it is because, as Viv says, you can rewind it, you can stop it, you can look at certain moments. So the children were go off into their groups talking about how they would go about rescuing the baby. And then we were looking at these film clips, which of course are not real film clips in any sense, but we were looking at them as if they were. And that gave us the advantage of being able to pause it at any moment and say, now look what you see what they're doing there. And now they've got the problem of what they're going to do with the baby. So they've found the baby, but the staircase has collapsed. So what are they going to do next? Well, let's see. Press play. So it's using that convention of being able to stop, start, rewind, and pause. But you're not. It's not an actual coherent.
It's more of an agreed way to. It's more of a compact about how to view, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this is a film that was made on that day, because that won't work. It's more of a, now let's, what if we were watching this as a film? So it's more of an agreed compact as a class, isn't it? Exactly. Yeah, that's interesting.
So it allows you to use all of the advantages of that convention, which are manifold and have all kinds of different advantages for teaching in situations where it wouldn't actually be a real film.
I guess another way you could do it, if you were really concerned about coherence on that day, is you could say, let's imagine that someone does one of those historical dramas where they recreate scenes from the
absolutely
past. And that would then make it coherent. Yeah.
Right. And then you could set up, but you can do that, and there's a lot, and that would be great as well. But if you as a shorthand, as a kind of a quick kind of
let's see it as a film.
Then there's a let's have a look at this as if it was a film, and you can run it like that. So I just wanted to add that to all the things that you've said, just so that I was just thinking about the different ways that I use it. I'm looking like Trump using my hands, aren't I? There's a range between the quick and fast, if it was, to something that you've actually set up as quite an elaborate frame. Sorry, Kate.
I just wanted to ask a question. It was clear from Viv's examples that there was an element of planning and rehearsing there. But I'm wondering, with your examples, Tim, were they also improvised as well as planned? I'm just thinking of 5 to 6 year olds as well.
Yeah, no, that's great. It was both and. So there was it was set up. How would we rescue a baby, and what would it look like if it was a film? And then they went off in their groups, and then they practiced that, and then we were having a look at it. But then there was an improvised element, because they'd only got up to the point where they kind of had the baby. So it was, well, let's see what happens next. And they had to improvise from that moment, which was exciting, of course. And there were lots of different variations, on one of which was throwing the baby out the window, and then everybody was sort of catching the baby as it kind of came out the window. So, there's lots of improvisation involved in it as well.
And in terms of the planning, that some people are going to use the keys in a planned way, right? I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do, and some teachers are going to be in the moment and go, oh, I know, I'll reach for that key now. So there's that version of improvising too. It's like, I'm just going to finish off by sharing this page about planning. Can you see that? Can you see that?
It's loading at the moment.
So when you're when you're planning for this one, if you're planning for it, because sometimes you feel like you're carrying the keys around in a little bunch in your pocket, and you can just go, oh, I know what I might do. We might encounter someone here, or we might. And I think key 11 and key 12, the watch a film clip and enact a film clip, are ones you said last time, Tim, that enact a film clip is one of the, watch a film clip is one of the ones you use most in your teaching. You just say, hey, have a little look, and I'll be the person, and it will be like a film. You can't speak to it. It is basically good old fashioned teacher in role, isn't it, that one? And key 12 is like that too. So, but if you are doing the Viv version with a bit of planning, you're going to focus particularly on the event because it's a clip. And I think this is where it's useful if you're thinking about using this key with one of these abstract concepts, like if we go back to them, bullying or identity, or saying this bit here, that what we call the hexagon, it looks very like the 5 elements of drama, doesn't it, Joe, with perhaps an extra one. If you think about these things, then that turns your abstract concept like bullying or identity or whatever into a moment, an event, a moment in time that you can then consider what kind of film clip it might be. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that can be quite useful. And then if you think about what kind of film clip it is, we did that, didn't we, before? We had a go at that before with the bullying example. Maybe it's CCTV, maybe it's an infomercial. And it's useful to prepare instructions, like to prepare maybe even the little script for how you're going to introduce the film clip. So I planned that bit where I talked about the magnificent marketers and how it took the internet by storm. I have that bit ready so that I'm not inventing that on the hoof. But it's fairly simple. It's actually a fairly simple key. So yeah, we had a little bit of a chat about other contexts you could explore. So those of you who are new to our planning sessions, we love hearing from you how you use and adapt these keys. It was a real buzz for me, Tim, at the Drama New Zealand conference, because I did a session on the keys in the morning, and twice in the afternoon in other workshops, I heard people who were off in groups going, oh, I think we could use a key here. And I was like, yes, our work is done. So we've got on the website, we've got a tab called Teacher Planning. And if you go on there, as well as the 2 examples in the book, we've also got multiple examples that have been sent to us by teachers using the keys in all these different ways. So it's a potentially massive resource. And we would love to hear from you if you use enact a film clip P11 in your practice. We'd love to add that to our collection. So please just either email us, or there's a form you can just fill in. You see, as you say, it's not a big job. Just fill in a few words on what you did, and send us a photo if you can, because our vision is that we're going to create this international resource with examples of how people have used the keys all over the world. And if you come back in a month's time, we're going to look at key number 13, which is enact a photograph. Now, how is that any different from enact a film clip? Well, come back next time and find out. So yeah, we'll leave it there, but thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. Lovely to meet some new faces, and thanks for being so prepared to play with what was it's fairly tricky to think on your feet. Like I hear you, Shona, on the freeze out, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to act it, and we never want that. So yeah, so thank you. I think you can see why I chose that whakatauki that we started with, the learning for the sake of well-being, and I think this key could be one that will help you with that. So yeah, I think we'll finish there. I'll stop sharing the screen, and I'll stop the recording.